Hey, this is PH, and welcome to Good Bible Knowledge as we come to the conclusion of the story of Joseph. Joseph was one of the 12 sons of Jacob. Joseph's brothers sold Joseph into slavery and told their father that Joseph was dead. But God was gracious to Joseph. Whether it was a house servant, or in prison, or in the court of the Pharaoh, God blessed him and everyone around him. Through God's mighty power, Joseph was put in control of all of Egypt's commerce. And through Joseph, God brought salvation to all of the land from a 7-year famine. Now one could stop here and say that God has brought justice, as Joseph is now blessed more than he could ever imagine, far removed both geographically and chronologically from the treachery of his brothers. But God wasn't finished. As we will see, God is not simply concerned with justice and fairness. He is also concerned about mercy and restoration, and the stage is now set for God's work of reconciliation. Due to the famine, Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain, keeping Benjamin the youngest at home. When they arrived, they were brought before Joseph. Though Joseph recognized them, they did not recognize him. And as they bowed down, Joseph was reminded of the dream God gave him as a child. Joseph accused them of spying and put them in prison. As we will see, Joseph was not seeking revenge. Rather, he was following God's plan for reconciliation. In their release, Joseph commanded them to bring their youngest son to Egypt in order to prove their integrity. He then had Simon bound and let the other brothers go. And as they left, the brothers were instantly reminded of their past secret sin. Joseph ordered his men to fill their bags with grain, and without their knowledge, he ordered them to replace the money that was paid in each bag. Returning home, each brother saw the money in his bag, and they were terrified. And Jacob forbid them from returning to Egypt with his beloved Benjamin. When their food had run out, Jacob reconsidered sending the brothers back to Egypt without Benjamin. But the brothers strongly protested, saying that the man solemnly warned them not to return without their younger brother. Judah pledged to his father, "I will personally be responsible for your son Benjamin. If any harm comes to him, let me bear the blame forever." In their second meeting with Joseph, Simeon was returned to them, and all of them were invited to dine with Joseph. And Joseph gave Benjamin 5 times as much food as the others, testing to see if they would continue to respond with jealousy. In the morning, Joseph sent his brothers back to their father. Unknown to them, Joseph instructed his men to put a silver cup in Benjamin's sack. Joseph then sent his steward out to overtake them and accuse them of theft. When the silver cup was found in Benjamin's sack, the brothers were struck with hopelessness and despair, and Judah tearfully confessed his hidden sins, begging Joseph for the life of Benjamin for the sake of his father. It is here where we see the requirement for receiving God's forgiveness: confession and repentance. Confession means to sorrowfully agree that we have done wrong in the eyes of God, and repentance means to genuinely turn away from wrong behavior. Instead of hiding their deeds, the brothers openly admitted their sins, and by their actions proved that they had genuinely changed the inclination of their hearts. It is only then that the fullness of God's forgiveness is poured out upon their lives, and immediate restoration and reconciliation occurred. Joseph revealed his identity, and the brothers together experienced a joyful reunion. Jacob was then brought to Egypt, and the Pharaoh allowed Joseph and his family to dwell in the land of Goshen. And Joseph, according to the Abrahamic covenant, blessed Pharaoh. How could Joseph forgive his brothers after all they had done to him? The answer is found in Joseph's response to his brother. Upon his deathbed, Joseph reminded his brothers of God's covenant with Abraham, that at the right time, God would bring them out of Egypt to the land that he promised to Abraham. Ultimately, the story of Joseph is about Jesus. God brought Joseph through all these trials in order to put him in a place where he would bring God's blessing and salvation to the entire world. Joseph, a righteous son, was betrayed by his own, wrongfully accused, and thrown into prison. God raised him out of prison and caused the greatest nation of the world to be brought before his mercy. In this concluding episode of the book of Genesis, we see that God's greatest desire is to reconcile sinful man back to God. Jesus is the righteous Son of God. He was persecuted, betrayed, falsely accused, and crucified on a cross. and 3 days later he rose from the dead, offering salvation to everyone who believes in him. And through confession, the act of admitting we have sinned in God's eyes, and repentance, the act of turning from our sinful ways, we are able to receive God's free gift of salvation through Jesus Christ. Thanks for listening to another episode of Good Bible Knowledge. We'll see you next time.